Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Carving It Up Live right here on YouTube, as well as on X and on Facebook. I am Bryson Carver, and tonight's show is going to be very, very different than ones that we have done really every day for the entirety of the show's existence, and one that I did not think I would be doing today, to say the very least. I'm not sure how long this will last. I am certainly down to engage with anyone who wants to feel free to chime in the chat, in the comment section. But for today, sports is going to go on the back burner. Sports does not matter today. We'll talk plenty of sports on Friday, plenty of football, plenty of whatever is going on. But as some of you know, I have really more so in the last, I'd say, year, going back to last year's presidential election, been more vocal on politics or current issues or whatever is going on if I feel that I have something important to say about it. That's the beauty of being an American, is having the First Amendment right to be able to express those beliefs if I think that they could be impactful in some way, shape, or form. So I'm saying this, I'm sure, as everybody watching this knows, the founder of Turning Point USA, Charlie Kirk, was at an event, a Turning Point USA event at Utah Valley University, and at that event, he was shot and killed by a gunman who, according to authorities, was approximately about 200 yards away. The suspect is still at large. There was a video where there was this old guy pinned down. Now it sounds like that isn't the suspect. So as of this live show, the person who did this awful crime is at large. I'm going to preface everything I'm about to say by saying this, and I think it's based on the takes I've had on this show, the beliefs that I have personally. When it comes to Charlie Kirk, to his organization, to really a lot of the ideas that are prominent in the MAGA sphere, if you will, in the MAGA culture, I personally disagree with just about all of them, if not all of them. Certainly many of the things that Charlie Kirk espoused over the years. There's no question about that. We can go down the list of issues, and I probably was on the complete opposite side of the spectrum of him on all of it. That did not mean he deserved to die. And the fact of the matter is, if this is there's a lot of things to be sickened about, most of which is the fact that his now widow, Erica, lost her husband today. 2 kids, ages 3 years old and 16 months old, lost their father. And that's who's hurt. And of course, his family and those who were close to him. That's the ultimate tragedy in all of this. But in a larger sense, in a bigger picture, how did we get here? How did we get to where this event is able to even take place at all? Is the fact that I don't know if it happened in the social media age. I don't know if it's happened in the last decade, where really feels like with the rise of Trump and the left's response to it, and trying the back and forth, the push and pull that we see today in American politics. I don't know if that's when it began. That there's no way for me to necessarily pinpoint the exact moment that this change occurred. But we have become so comfortable as a society dehumanizing those who we disagree with, even vehemently disagree with. And again, for the record, I want this to be abundantly clear. The views and beliefs that Charlie Kirk espoused, I fundamentally, to my core, disagreed with all of them. But Charlie Kirk was an American citizen. Charlie Kirk was a human being. Charlie Kirk had the right that you have and that I have to go home to his family at the end of the day safely, without fear of violence. And this is to my politics tend to be left of center. They do. I'm not going to hide that. But to my friends on the left, those that are the extremists on the left that have, again, this is why I want to preface extremists. The vast majority have not espoused what I'm about to say. But he had it coming. You know, the things that he said at these Turning Point events or on his show, on college campuses, on other podcasts, at the RNC or with Trump or whatever, he had it coming. He asked for this. You cannot say that you are because obviously this is a story when it comes to any event like this, the advent of gun culture in America. You cannot say that you are for gun reform and against gun violence and be okay with this. You are a violent hypocrite. There's no two ways about this. You are a hypocrite. Gun violence is something that it's probably the first ever political issue I ever touched on my show. Back when Uvalde happened in 2022, just a gut-wrenching event in which I think over 20 kids were murdered. It was, unthinkable tragedy in Uvalde, Texas. And I remember talking about it in the show, and it's something that I'm extremely passionate about. Maybe it's because I'm Gen Z and my generation and generations before me and tragically after me have had to deal with it more so than ones in years past in this country. You cannot say you're against violence and be fine with this. And to my friends on the right, mostly those on the extreme right that have tried to make this a conversation of, oh, this is evidence of a war on conservatism, on MAGA, on Trumpism. I thought no one summed it up better than Ezra Klein of the New York Times. We can go and put up his tweet because this is basically what I was going to get to, and he summed it up. I'll read it for the podcast audience, those that are listening. In the last few years, we've seen the plot to kidnap Gretchen Whitmer, governor of Michigan, the storming of the Capitol and pipe bombs left at the RNC and DNC, the break-in to kidnap Nancy Pelosi and the brutal I think he meant to say brutality, on Paul Pelosi, multiple assassination attempts against Trump, the assassination of Minnesota House Speaker Melissa Hortman and her husband, and the shooting on State Senator John Hoffman and his wife, Luigi Mangione's assassination of Brian Thompson, the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Political violence is contagious. It is spreading. It is not confined to one side or belief system. It should terrify us all. The foundation of a free society is the ability to participate in it without fear of violence. Political violence is always an attack on us all. You have to be so blind not to see that. If you are maybe on the right or a conservative or a voter or supporter of Donald Trump, or if you're somebody on the left, a supporter of whether it be Biden, or if you're someone who is a fan of Bernie Sanders or any of the major party leaders on the Democratic Party or on the left, we are all under attack. Flatly. This idea that one side has a monopoly on violence is nonsense. It speaks to a culture, it speaks to a society in which if I disagree with you, you are evil and you deserve harm. It speaks to a society in which if you disagree with me, even if, again, from a pure morality perspective, if the beliefs which you espouse suggest that you are superior to somebody, as many of the things that Charlie Kirk said over the years did espouse, then you are not human, you are beneath me. And if something bad happens to you, I can justify that in my head, in my messed up head, because you are not a human being. In my eyes, you do not deserve the dignity that every single human being on this planet deserves. And I am devastated for the kids at Utah Valley University. All they wanted to do was go to a political event. Whether it's to agree with Charlie Kirk, whether it's to dissent and debate Charlie Kirk, as we've seen on many viral videos over the years on the internet, all they wanted to do is to freely, on a beautiful day on campus, probably after their classes, go to this event with this very popular conservative guy, hear what he has to say, engage with him positively or negatively, and go home. Instead, they saw a man murdered in broad daylight. What kind of country do we want to be? Because if this continues, we're screwed. If the rhetoric continues, this dehumanization of those who disagree with you politically, if this continues, folks, we will not survive as a nation, and you can book it. I have, 3 years ago, and a big shout out to my man, Isaac Lawson. He was my co-host for a podcast series we did in 2022. It's called the Carving It Up U.S. President's Edition. We basically just went through every president from George Washington all the way up until Joe Biden was president at the time. Talked about all of them, the major events that happened in their presidencies. And the last episode was really fun. We spent 3 hours ranking them. It was a blast. And, I would love to do something similar like that again with Isaac or, to engage. Because I've been a a bigger fan of, I should say a bigger, I've been a fan of presidential history longer than I've been a fan of sports. And that surprises some people. That is the God's honest truth. And in doing so, and I'm no historian, I'm no John Meacham or anybody of that ilk. Like that, there's certain individuals that are far exceed me in terms of their knowledge of the history of this country. But I do study it often and almost daily. And what you come to find is that times in our history that parallel this one, it's always ended poorly. Most notably, and I hate to go here, but the years and decades leading up to the Civil War, really between the Missouri Compromise in 1820 all the way to the Civil War, which began in 1861, particularly in the 1850s when you have most notably Bleeding Kansas after the disastrous Kansas-Nebraska Act was signed by President Franklin Pierce, and the violence that came after that against political leaders, against community organizers, against abolitionists. It was, and of course, we got a Civil War in which over 600,000 Americans lost their lives. And if not for the otherworldly leadership of, in my mind, the greatest president we've ever had, Abraham Lincoln, not so sure we would have had a country that resembled anything what we are today, or at least what we aspire to be today, if not for that. And still, the evil that persisted before it, the original sin of America, which was slavery, a system that corrupt, that twisted, that vile, will not survive without consequence. It can't. The years that led up to Civil War were not going to be sustainable if this country were going to continue. After Reconstruction, you have, well, really after Reconstruction failed in the mid to late 1870s, then you have the federal troops leave the South. Now you have Jim Crow laws, which exist for basically 90 years in the South. The deprivation, reducing Black Americans to second-class citizens, most notably in the southern states, that was not going to be sustainable without some real backlash. And we saw that in the 60s, which was one of the most violent decades you can imagine. The assassination of President Kennedy, his brother Robert Kennedy later in the decade, Martin Luther King Jr., Malcolm X, go down the list. The Vietnam War, which again, that's kind of separate from that. But there's a lot of parallels to that era that I'm seeing right now in this country. And it is utterly terrifying. The fact of the matter is, and again, I cannot emphasize this enough, I could not possibly disagree with Charlie Kirk more than I did with his beliefs. The man did not deserve to die. And I think what is absolutely terrifying moving forward is I don't see an event like this with an individual this controversial in a world this polarized, where outrage is not only not condemned, but monetized, where to a degree, particularly on one of the apps that this show is streaming on, X, where violence is encouraged, where a video of a political leader shot dead on stage is not taken down instantaneously. If nothing changes, folks, we're screwed. I wish I could tell you differently, but we're screwed if this continues. The United States of America, at least the one that the vast majority of us hope it to be, which is a free society in which the First Amendment is not just respected, but ardently defended and supported, will cease to exist. We cannot survive this, folks. It's show me any event in U.S. We have this very, I don't want to say we look at U.S. history through rose-colored glasses, because that's not true. We don't. Anyone that has any objectivity in looking at the great aspects and the terrible aspects of America's nearly 250 years history can see it for what it is, good, bad, or indifferent. But we seem to kind of have this, America always just pulls through. Look at every crisis we ever had. The Civil War, the Great Depression, the World Wars we fought in, the Cold War, Vietnam, America, 9/11, we all just kind of always pull through. Yeah, but that doesn't just happen. That takes the leaders in charge to step up, to represent, or to understand the critically important moment that we're in right now. And it involves the citizens of this nation as well. I don't want to make this sound like a kumbaya, everybody hug and kiss, and everything's going to be fine again. God, you got to talk to people. You've got to. This idea that someone disagrees with me, therefore they are evil. And for the record, both sides are equally guilty for that. I saw a tweet a couple of hours ago that said, you cannot be a liberal and love America. That is obviously absurd. Or this idea, I've heard some of the left say that folks who served in the military and are MAGA, their service was for nothing, or it doesn't hold the same weight. That is ridiculous as well. We can simultaneously and fundamentally disagree on key political issues without wishing harm on somebody. I am gutted for Charlie Kirk's family, for his wife Erica, and again, they have 2 small children, ages 3 and 16 months. Charlie Kirk, I had my issues with him. That goes without saying, but he deserved to go to his family. We're in a scary time in America, folks. There's no two ways about it. Got a comment here. Common sense isn't that common anymore. That's how I feel about America. Yeah. My guy, Alfred Parso Jr., who, by the way, was going to have Alfred on the show today, but I texted him after this. I'm like, this sports is off the table for today's show. Whether you like him or hate him, agree or disagree with his stances, nobody should celebrate the killing of this man or any man, no question. Luigi Mangione was turned into a folk hero here in New York City. Which I found abhorrent. You can be against a system, which our healthcare system, there's no two ways about it, is deeply flawed. Without, the way to change policies like this is to get the right people in charge, not to take out, to assassinate, to violently take out those who are in charge. And yeah, I thought the rise in popularity of this guy was extremely alarming and said a lot about where we are as a country. And so, listen, this was going to be a shorter show because I had nothing to add in the sports realm, knowing in my head that something like this happened. I just hope that, and it feels almost, I hate to say this, but it almost feels delusional at this point. I hope that there's an element of reflection, but also where bad behavior and hate speech, particularly on social media, is punished, but more so than that, isn't incentivized. Like, we know in this country, the loudest voices are the ones who get the most play. We know that, there's a reason the conservatives tune into Fox News so they can have their beliefs reinformed. And the folks on Fox News will say the left is evil. They're coming after your guns, your freedom, your family, and everything. And then you go to the left, and it's Donald Trump is the reincarnation of Adolf Hitler himself. And we're never going to have elections again in the history of this country. And when you have that fed into your head over and over and over again, of course you're going to start seeing the other side as evil. Because if one side is telling you that they're a threat to your safety, to your security, to your way of life, to what you want to be as an American citizen living in a free country, yeah, you probably will resort to violent measures or to abhorrent measures in order to accomplish to attain the country that you are seeking to get. That's all I've got. Carving It Up will be back on Friday. Same time as usual, 6 Eastern, 3 Pacific. Man, we're in a rough state, guys. We're in a really, really rough state. And we are at a time we're going to need extraordinary leadership. And to be frank, I don't really see it right now on either side. and we're going to need to talk to each other. I'm sorry. I don't care. I'm comfortable. I actually had a segment about this last Thanksgiving. Maybe this is what I'll end on, and then we'll go. I did a segment about this last Thanksgiving, which was 3 months after the election. And excuse me. And I said, I gave an opinion that is probably viewed as controversial, but I believe it to my core, is this. It's always, anytime Thanksgiving rolls around, it's like, okay, don't talk about three things: sex, religion, and politics. Agreed on the first one. Religion depends on the situation. That's a little bit more murky. I think it's the exact time to talk politics at Thanksgiving. I do. I said that last year on the show, is that if you want, the goal in having discussions with people is not to change their minds. If that is, you're approaching it in bad faith and you're not going anywhere. The goal is, all of our beliefs have been shaped by some life experience, by the pain in our lives, by the adversities we faced in life, by a number of things, traumas. That's how we get to where we get in terms of our belief system. They don't just appear out of thin air. It could be this is how you were raised and you've never really considered another perspective outside of it. Whatever the case may be, that's why you believe what you believe. Next time you get into a discussion with somebody who you vehemently disagree with, maybe someone you might even see as any of the bad-ists, racist, sexist, homophobic, any of the anti-Semitic, any of those things, talk to them. See them as a human being. Because at the end of the day, we all share this earth. Like, I know Elon Musk is trying to move us to Mars, but as for right now, we're all humans inhabiting the same planet. It's a miracle that we all exist in the same time in which we do. Talk to people. Engage with them. And if it doesn't work out, then walk away. If there's hostility, if the other person is approaching in bad faith, then walk away. It is what it is, and that person is going to have to work those things out for themselves individually. But this can't continue. And anybody who wants to claim or label or associate violence with one political party or another is exactly part of the problem. That's how we got to where we got today. To where a man, who I say again, I fundamentally disagree with, was killed for his beliefs. That's what happened. So, praying for a number of things. Praying that the person who did this horrible act is brought to justice. Praying for all the students at Utah Valley University who all they wanted to do was attend a political event, whether it's to be in community with one another and they agree with Charlie Kirk, or those who disagree with Charlie Kirk and want to debate Charlie Kirk. That's all they wanted to do. And instead they saw something that will live in their heads for the rest of their lives. And they didn't deserve that. And prayers ultimately for Charlie Kirk's family and loved ones, most notably his wife, Erica, and their 2 children. Hopefully, we improve from this. History would show that history shows that events like this that happen over and over again with no repercussion or no pushback or a resolution of some sort usually ends very, 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 very poorly for everybody involved, innocent and guilty. We're all involved in this. Don't think that you're safe. Don't think that you are absent from this attack on the First Amendment across the board. Praying for America today. And if you're a praying person, I hope you are too. Have a good night, and we'll see you on Friday.